Thank you. So, the SATORI project, it's a big, ambitious and sometimes confusing project. I'm going to try to explain it to you in about 7 or 8 minutes. That is to the invited experts here, because I think our consortium members know the drill. Sort of, well, still trying to figure out the full elephant, but at least having grasped parts of the elephant. So, SATORI, what is it about? So the aim of SATORI, it's not, it's a very unitary focused aim, I would say. It's the development of a framework of common principles, protocols, procedures, and best practices for the ethical assessment and guidance of research and innovation in the European Union and beyond. Of course, the European Union being the most important here, because this is an EU-funded project, so it should be especially usable for the European Union. So the idea behind this aim is that there are so many different organizations now doing ethics assessment and ethical guidance of research and innovation. So many disciplines, scientific fields doing it, so many countries doing it in their own way. So there's all these approaches, all these standards, or lack of standards, and there's not really a single vocabulary, a single set of standards, or a single view on what good ethics assessment is and what it involves. So the aim of this project is to try to elevate the level of ethics assessment and have more of a common language and a common idea of how to do it. So the SATORI team, I think you already saw some of the organizations. We have 17 organizations, so it's really, it reflects the diversity of organizations that actually engage in ethics assessment. So we have universities, we have industry, we have science academies, we have CSOs, civil society, standardization organizations, many different kinds of organizations involved. Research ethics, national ethics committees, we have the National Association of Research Ethics Committees, and so forth. So since January 2014, we've been working on this project, so it's a project of 45 months, so we'll be done October 2017. Budget is 4.7 million euros, and so we're, I think, a bit over half of our time here. Let me also introduce some very fundamental terminology here, because people may be confused about the basic terminology. It's very important to be on the same page here. So the central term for us is ethics assessment. What do we mean by that? By that we mean any kind of assessment, evaluation, review, appraisal, or valuation of practices, products, and uses of research and innovation that makes use of primarily ethical principles or criteria. So, for example, an ethics assessment of an experiment may include the observation that a proposed experiment does not live up to standards of informed consent. Or an assessment of web browsers in the context of privacy may lead to the assessment that web browsers that place cookies without informed consent violate privacy. So that's examples of ethics assessment. We also make use of the concept of ethical guidance. Ethical guidance is the statement of ethical guidelines, principles, rules, codes, and recommendations to which scientific practices and innovation practices and developments in science and technology, etc., are expected or recommended to adhere. So the difference is between guidance and assessment is that in assessment you have an object that you assess, and then you basically say how well it performs according to your assessment standards. In ethical guidance, you issue standards, but you don't necessarily also apply them to a particular object. So, for example, you may say experiments involving human subjects should involve informed consent, or software should not violate the privacy of users. So you give direction to research and innovation practices. You may also give direction to ethics assessment practices, but you don't do actual ethical assessment. So I hope that difference is clear. So our main focus in this project is on ethical assessment, but we also have some discussion of ethical guidance. If only because ethical guidance is often involved in or prior to ethical assessment, because for ethical assessment it's handy to have some ethical guidelines. Okay, and what you see is that you have organizations that primarily do ethical assessment, for example, research ethics committees primarily do ethical assessment, and other organizations, they primarily do ethical guidance. For example, professional organizations or science academies, they may issue professional ethical guidelines. And also national ethics committees, they have more of a focus on ethical guidance than on actual ethical assessment. Okay, so for the kind of approach or framework or toolkit that we're trying to develop, we have some requirements, and many of those have been specified actually by the European Commission for a project. One is that our framework should include all scientific disciplines. So it's not just medicine or engineering, it's also the social sciences, the humanities, the natural sciences. All fields should be considered. Another requirement is that we involve mutual learning. So that's what we do within our consortium, because we represent many different disciplines, organizations, and countries. So we have mutual learning, but also the stakeholders that we involve, the experts and the stakeholders, we try to have mutual learning with many people. We've already interviewed hundreds of people. We have had previous workshops with stakeholders and experts. So there's a lot of mutual learning going on. That also includes then stakeholder and public engagement. This is a process where we don't just want to develop something within our own consortium. We want to constantly reach out to stakeholders and also involve the public in shaping our proposals. We also will have to balance uniformity and diversity in our proposals. On the one hand, we want some shared and general guidelines, standards, best practices. On the other hand, we have to respect the differences between disciplines, the different aims that organizations have that engage in ethics assessment, and the differences between countries in which ethics assessment is practiced. And another requirement is that our approaches or our toolkit will be useful to a wide variety of ethics assessors. And by ethics assessors, we mean those organizations, those agents that engage in ethics assessment. So this is the structure of our project. So we started January 2014, and we basically have divided up our work in 3 stages in the 45 months that we have. So in the first stage, which we have concluded, the fact-finding stage, we spent 19 months studying current practice in ethics assessment. So we looked at different types of organizations doing ethics assessment, like research funding organizations, etc., the ones, some of which you're discussing today at the tables. We looked at different scientific fields and compared them. We looked at different countries, and we created many reports to document our findings on what the current practices are. The current practices, the current institutions, organizations. So actually we've written dozens of reports on that, several thousand pages, and they can currently be found online on our website. We also, in the context of that, we did several hundred interviews with people. We also studied some particular issues, like issues of the relation between legislation, both national and European and international legislation and regulation. We looked at issues of globalization and the ethical issues that they rise, and we developed approaches and models for stakeholder and public engagement. So having done that, we entered the framework construction stage, which is where we actually develop positive proposals for improving ethics assessment. So we're in the middle of that stage right now. We have work packages 4, 5, and 6. So the one on cost effectiveness and risk benefit is work package 5. Work package 4 is where we have the basic framework that we want to develop, or the basic toolkit with recommendations for how to do ethics assessment, both in general and for specific fields, organizations, or even countries. So there we already have some draft reports ready, and we hope to finalize those reports soon. So we're in the middle of that. Basically the cost effectiveness and risk benefit work package is a further refinement of that framework. So work package 4 develops the basic approach. Work package 5 develops the cost effectiveness and risk benefit aspects of that approach in particular. And then work package 6 is about how to measure, to have a method for measuring the impact of ethics assessment. So what is the societal impact, the impact on research and innovation of ethics assessment procedures? So then finally, at the end of this year, we will start with the elaboration and communication stage. That will involve work packages that address the standardization. We're already working on standardization, so we're going to try to actually make a formal standard, retaining standards, and NEN are helping us to develop such a standard. That's also the third day today. The workshop will be focusing on that for those of you who are participating. We will be looking at policy implications. We, of course, will spend a lot of effort communicating our results to other parties and ensuring their viability for the future. That's also where the road mapping comes in, which will be discussed tomorrow. And in that way, we hope to have done something unique, because we think this has not been done before, this kind of project, where you actually have this broad comparative analysis of all these different scientific fields, organizations, countries, and we hope to come up with proposals that stakeholders find worthwhile and that can have lasting effect. Thank you.